Howdy, my name is Ben and/or a Bookish Bear, and what I'm doing today is my TBR, which is, when I mean TBR, I just mean books that I own that have been sitting in piles that I have not read yet. And these piles are out of control. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here, and I have more, but these are the 6 that I'm going to go through today. I'm going to just organize them. I'm going to try to put them in 4 categories. One, books that I just am probably not going to read and can get rid of. So my second would be books that have been sitting in a pile for too long and I'm going to just put into my shelf and hopefully read at some other point. The next is books that I do want to read this year, but not necessarily right away. So they're going to stay in piles somewhere. And the last is I'm going to make a pile of books that I want to read as soon as possible. But I'm just going to get into it because I might have to split this into 2 parts because it's a lot of books. Okay, so I'm going to go through stack by stack. I'm going to go through this pile, which are books that I've had for the longest, I believe. Some of these, though, are sort of new. This is actually I got pretty recently, but I've read it before. It's A Very Bad Wizard by Tamler. Sommers is the author, I guess you could say. It's just 9 conversations about morality. It's very interesting, and I wanted to reread it, which is why I got another, because I think I gave my old copy to a friend. So this will go back in a shelf of nonfiction. Got Emperor of Doom. I read the first 3 Dune books. This is the 4th, and I need to finish this. I started it. I didn't get very far in, but I do want to read this year. So this is going to be books that stay in a pile but want to read this year. DIlla Time, which came out pretty recently. It's the life and time of DIlla, who's a producer, a rap producer, who's pretty amazing, and I do want to read this. So it's going to go in books that I want to read this year, but not right away. The Every by Dave Eggers. This is actually, recently I have had an itch to read this. So I'm going to put this in the ASAP pile. The Balloonist by Ulysses. I think I read this actually, so I'll probably read it again because it's super short. So I'm going to put that in, I'm going to shelve it, right? No, I'm going to put this in ASAP and just read it. So I'm sure I read it and then shelve it. The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen. I wanted to read some Franzen, so I got this used copy really cheap. Kind of want to read Crossroads now, so I might up that. So I'm going to shelve this as well. A Meeting by the River by Christopher Isherwood. I do want to read this. I do want to read this, so it's going to go in this year pile. Down There on a Visit by Christopher Isherwood. I feel like if I read the other Isherwood, I'm going to want to read more, so this is also going to go in, stay in a pile, maybe this year, hopefully this year. The Plot Against Hip Hop, a novel by Nelson George. I believe this is like a murder mystery that's very influenced and references a lot of rap, and I'm a huge rap fan, so I'm excited to read this, but I'm gonna shelve it because I just don't know when I'm gonna be in the mood for that. So I'm gonna shelve it. That's fine. Ulysses. My dog just barked, so okay. Ulysses by James Joyce. I want to read this. I was planning on reading this year. I usually try to tackle one sort of big, difficult book a year, and I did read the Books of Jake earlier this year, so I don't know if I'm going to get to this. I think I'm going to shelve it because it's a book that I know I want to read, so it's okay if it's just sitting on a shelf and not in a pile. So yeah, I'm gonna shelve Ulysses and just get to it whenever I get to it, or maybe I can find some people to read it with. All That Man Is by David Szalay. I don't really know much about this book or why I bought it. I think I'm going to shelve it and or give it away. I'm going to shelve it and maybe I'll get to it at some point. If Nobody Speaks of Remarkable Things by John McGregor. Again, I think this and All That Man Is were recommended by some famous musician in a list, and that's why I purchased them. But I don't remember any of the context of why I have these books or what they're about. So I'm gonna shelve this one too. And finally in this pile, this one I've had for a while now. The Use and Abuse of Literature by Marjorie Garber, which is about, it says this is a deep, engaging meditation on the use and uselessness of reading in the digital age. So that sounds really interesting. Every time I read the synopsis, because I forget what it's about, I am very interested. So I'm going to put this in a pile to read this year. And if I don't, then I'm just going to shelve it. Okay, on to pile 2. Most of these are books, or the second oldest stack that I have here, but some of these are fairly new that I just put on top. That's information you don't need. The Hatred of Poetry by Ben Lerner. I think I actually read this as an ebook and then just on a whim wanted a physical copy to like go through again. So I'm gonna put it in ASAP pile because it's short and I can maybe just get through it pretty quick in a day. It's probably kind of dense though, so we'll see. I'm gonna put it in ASAP and see what happens. 7 Kinds of People You Find in Bookshops by Sean Bythell. I read his other book, Confessions of a Bookseller. It was a really good in bed at night book, but I'm just gonna shelve this. The Little Buddhist Monk and The Proof by Caesar Ira. I really love this author and I've been wanting to read these. I'm gonna put this in ASAP and hopefully get to it this summer between Booker books or something. I don't know, we'll see. Between the World and Me. I received this, I think, as a birthday present. And I do want to read more of his work. I read The Water Dancer and liked it. Do want to read more of his nonfiction work because listening to him talk is very interesting. But I don't think I'm going to get to it soon. So I'm going to put it in, stay in a pile, and hopefully read this summer or this year. My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. Again, I've had this in a pile for a while. I'm going to put it in, stay in a pile and maybe read. Because I'm probably going to read Latvana soon. And so I don't know if I'll be wanting more of that or not. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino. I am dying to read Quentin Tarantino's first novel. But every time I read the first 2 sentences, it's I know it's going to be a train wreck, and it's probably going to be a train wreck in the best possible way. I loved the film. I'm dying to read this, but I just haven't. I just can't bring myself to do it. So if anyone wants to read Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with me by Quentin Tarantino, that would be awesome. Let me know. I'm going to put this in, I'm going to leave it in a pile and hopefully get to it this year. The Wake by Paul Kingsnorth. This is an ex-library book, I believe, so it's kind of a mess, but I got it for cheap. This sounds super interesting, but it feels like a winter book to me, so it's going to go in a pile and hopefully I will read it this winter. Ring by Koji Suzuki. This is the novel that The Ring is based off, the movies, the Japanese and the American remake, and I'm really interested in to read it, but I've been sitting in a pile again for just so long. I'm gonna shelve it. Oh, Time on Two Crosses, the collected writings of Bayard Rustin. Bayard Rustin was an out gay man who was very pivotal in the civil rights movement and worked closely with Martin Luther King Jr. I'm really excited and want to read more of his writing, but this, again, has been in a pile for like 2 years, so it's tough to do this, but I think am I gonna shelve it? I'm gonna put it in a pile and hope I get to it. Okay, Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellmann. Everyone freaked out about this book last year. Was it last year? It was shortlisted in 2019 for the Booker. I want to read Ducks Newburyport, but again, it's such a commitment, and I want to read so many other things. I'm gonna shelf it and just let it sit on my shelf. Look at this just thick spine. It's just gonna haunt me from my shelf until I just finally read it. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna shelf it. Sorry about it. Okay, next pile. This is The Front Runner by Patricia Nell Warren. It's supposed to be a very important and influential gay novel about a running coach who falls in love with one of his runners. I believe they are college age, so it's not as scandalous. But I started it and wasn't super impressed, so I might go back to it eventually, but I'm gonna shelve this. This is the book called The Gay Canon by Robert Drake, and it just kind of the subtitle, Great Books Every Gay Man Should Read. It just kind of goes through a bunch of books in history that have been influential and important to gay men and gay culture. And it's a simple read. You can read like one book at a time, which was what I was doing every day for a while. So hopefully I'll get back to that soon. I love books about books because like I just keep a list in the book of other books that now I need to get and read. So that's always fun. So I'm going to keep this out and probably put it on my desk and try to do one thing a day again until I finish it. This is the complete short stories of James Purdy. I think I read like 2 stories. It has an introduction and was recommended by John Waters, so I was sold on that. I enjoyed the few stories I read, but it's been sitting in a pile. Take a drink every time I say it's been sitting in a pile for so long that I'm just gonna shelf it, and when I feel in the mood for short stories, pull it out. The next is Songs of a Dead Dreamer and Grim Scribe by Thomas Ligotti. This is a book that was recommended by tons of horror fans. A lot of people seem to think that he is one of our better horror story writers, and I am excited to read some of his. It's gonna be a fall read, right? Like I need to read it in the fall. So I'm gonna put it in a pile and hopefully get to it in the fall. The next few are, I was doing a reading project of reading through. I have a book called My Ideal Bookshelves, which is a lot of famous people, some of them writers, who talk about their favorite books and books that are important to them. One of the people in the book is Dave Eggers, who I enjoy Dave Eggers' writing a lot. So I was reading through all of his favorite books and on his list. So these are from that. So this is Herzog by Saul Bellow. I don't really know anything about this novel, except that he really liked it, and apparently it won the 1976 Nobel Prize for Literature. I would still like to read this, but I'm going to shelve it. This is The Sheltering Sky by Paul Bowles. I also don't know much about this book or what it's about, so I'm going to shelve it and possibly get rid of it because I haven't read it and it's been years. And this is For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway, which was on his list. This is actually his list that I kept with the books. And I'm going to shelve this as well because I believe I've read it before. There are a few Hemingway novels. I'm a fan, but there are a few Hemingway novels that I confuse in my brain. And I don't know which I've read and which I haven't and which is which. But I believe I've read this one. So I'm going to shelve it. This is good. I have a stack of shelved books that is larger than the other 2 stacks now, so that's good.